This is a recent blockbuster scientific article coming out of Harvard, the Crypto Terrestrial Hypothesis, a case for scientific openness to a concealed earthly explanation for unidentified anomalous phenomena. This article has surely gone viral if you look at just the number of worldwide articles: crypto terrestrials, aliens living among us, disguised as humans, Harvard scholars, intelligent alien dinosaurs could be hiding underground, Harvard scientists reckon. In this video, we'll go through the second half of the paper. I've already gone through the first half, which is mind-blowing, actually. Great information, a summary of where we are up to now, and a basic initial definition of crypto terrestrials. So if ultra-terrestrials and crypto terrestrials sounds foreign to you, check out part 1. And at any rate, it's a great first half of the paper. But in this part 2, we'll go through what are the details of the crypto terrestrials that could possibly be living among us, according to Harvard researchers and a Montana Technological University researcher. They give 4 possibilities, so let's check that out now. Thanks for being here.
Chris Lehto, welcome to LehtoFiles.
Psychology research scientist, Human Flourishing Program, Tim Lomas, Associate Director for Research, Human Flourishing Program. That's Brendan Case, and then Professor of Biological Anthropology at Montana Technological University, Dr. Michael P. Masters. And Masters has gone on CNN. I've seen him on there, as well as he did an interview on Disclosure Team with Vinny Adams you can reference. Links to all this stuff is in the description. Interesting, they put a note here that they believe this hypothesis to be in all likelihood false, but nevertheless believe it still merits scientific investigation. In part 1, we showed, they said it went from 1% as possible sections of it could be true to 10%. So they think the crypto terrestrial hypothesis, or CTH, is 10% possible, which seems pretty high. So where we left off in part 1 is, we therefore suggest scientists should keep an open mind and investigate the crypto terrestrial hypothesis as a genuinely viable theory. To that end, we offer various speculative strands of thought that could provide a tentative foundation and evidence for such a theory. For context, we begin by considering the limits to current historical and geological knowledge. Okay, so I'll go through this section relatively quickly. I'll leave it up so if you want to pause and read, you can. But first part talks about the fragility of historical understanding. So our understanding of human and planetary history is built on evidence that has survived over time and was recognized for its significance. Despite advances in paleoanthropology, our knowledge remains incomplete, they argue, with significant gaps in the fossil record, particularly for primates. For example, Robert Martin of Chicago's Field Museum suggests we have fossil evidence for only about 5% of all extinct primates, with his estimation of the number of extinct primate species being up to 9,000, while fewer than 500 have been identified from the fossil record, meaning that the task facing paleontologists in trying to get an accurate picture of primate evolution is like trying to reconstruct a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle using just 50 pieces. They also talk about archaeological discoveries. So new discoveries, like those of the Indus Valley Civilization, Göbekli Tepe, Derinkoyu, and a Stonehenge-like structure in Lake Michigan, challenge and potentially reshape our understanding of human history. These findings suggest advanced human capabilities far earlier than previously thought. If such uncertainty is possible with events as recent as 11,000 years ago, like Göbekli Tepe, imagine that. This is a blink of an eye in planetary terms, given that Earth is 4.5 billion years old. As McPhee noted, geologists will sometimes use the calendar year as a unit to represent the timescale, and in that respect, the Precambrian, from the Earth's initial formation 4.5 billion years ago until the Cambrian explosion circa 500 million years ago, runs from New Year's Day until well after Halloween. Dinosaurs appear in the middle of December and are gone the day after Christmas. Look at that. The last ice sheet melts on December 31st at 1 minute before midnight, and the Roman Empire lasts 5 seconds. Indeed, the entirety of recorded human history takes place within the year's last 30 seconds. That is amazing. In world historical terms, mammoths and smilodons were with us a few deep breaths ago and Charlemagne's afterimage is still fading from our collective retinas. Moreover, given how easily even relatively recent evidence can be destroyed, lost, or remain undiscovered, our understanding of the far more distant past, apart from brute geological facts such as the age of mountains, is nearly totally blank. So that's amazing. The Roman Empire lasts just 5 seconds. Imagine that. So the geological timescale, Earth's history is vast, with human history occupying only a tiny fraction. Not just that, the geological record is often poor, leading to significant gaps in our understanding. This opens the possibility for earlier intelligent or industrialized species to have existed without leaving clear traces. One of these is called the Silurian hypothesis. This hypothesis suggests that intelligent species might have existed long before humans, but left no discernible traces. Factors like the immense timescales and the potential for environmental recovery could mean multiple technological civilizations could have existed on Earth or Mars without being aware of each other. He notes here, Kastrup in 2024 notes the viability of the Silurian hypothesis, suggesting there's been plenty of time and opportunity for other non-human species to have arisen on Earth, developed to a level of technology far beyond ours, and then to have effectively vanished due to one or more of the myriad possible civilization-ending cataclysms. They also note interesting things on Mars. So a sample of official NASA Mars photographs of what appears to be the wreckage and debris from extraterrestrial spacecraft, partially buried bones, the body of a humanoid stretched out on a cushion, etc., as well as UAPs, UFOs photographed in the skies of Mars in a silver saucer-shaped structure on the ground, could indicate other civilizations on Mars. Of course, they say, caution is needed in interpreting such data, of course, particularly given the human cognitive habit of pareidolia, the tendency to perceive a specific, often meaningful image in a random or ambiguous visual pattern. This is the prevailing scientific interpretation of the famous face on Mars, a mild-wide likeness from the Cydonia region attained by NASA's Viking 1 in 1976. However, they'd argue we must also be wary of simply assuming an apparently anomalous object is pareidolia, as doing so would equally be a cognitive bias that hinders us from studying evidence with due openness and objectivity. That if another intelligent species had inhabited Earth or Mars long before Homo sapiens, it is possible that we could have no idea. Of course, for these considerations to be relevant to the CTH, such a species would need to still be present on Earth and existing in stealth, whether a branch of Homo sapiens, different hominin subspecies, an even earlier precursor, or something else entirely. As we discussed below, while this notion may sound unlikely on first hearing, many observers are persuaded that it is at least conceivable, not least because whole swaths of our planet remain virtually unexplored and uncharted. This, of course, includes the vast regions of underwater, but even includes areas above ground. There have been recent speculation, for instance, about an Alaskan triangle, a sparsely populated area between Anchorage and Juneau, in the south, Utqiagvik on the northern coast that is a prominent hotspot for UAP, as well as other oddities, such as over 20,000 unexplained disappearances in the area since the 1970s. They also mention a paper by Davies, 2009, potential for Earth to host a shadow biosphere or shadow biome involving forms of weird life, whose biochemistry is so non-standard that it would not be detected by life detection tools targeted at standard Terran biochemistry. I made a video on possibility of plasma life. Maximo Teodoranyi proposes that maybe you could have actual DNA structures inside of plasma, and this could be plasma life that we maybe not considering, these balls of white light or something. This kind of idea has sometimes been known as the paraphysical hypothesis, which essentially denotes forms of life that are physical but are usually undetected and unknown to us. Given the vast unexplored regions of Earth, including underwater and underground areas, the existence of a hidden intelligent species remains a possibility, such as in the Alaskan Triangle. Our understanding of Earth's biology is limited, with the possibility of a shadow biosphere of unknown life forms. Cryptozoology, the study of species hypothesized from indirect evidence, suggests there could be significant undiscovered biodiversity, including large mammals like Sasquatch. They argue there are traces of lost civilizations. All cultures have their myths and legends. There are, of course, many ways to interpret such tales, ranging from works of playful imagination to vehicles for conveying ethical teachings. However, there is an increasing appreciation that even if myths do involve such functions, they may also sometimes, perhaps even often, actually be attempts by pre-literate societies at memorializing, interpreting, and communicating real historical events. Preeminent example is a great flood found across many geographically dispersed traditions, including Sumerian, ancient Israelite, Greek, Indian, and Cheyenne. Similarly, albeit less immediately dramatic, Nunn and Cook show that many coastal cultures have mythologized stories of land becoming separated from mainlands by submergence. They point out that science has traditionally underestimated the capacity of oral cultures to acquire, encode, and sustain their observations of memorable events with a high degree of replication fidelity. They mention researchers show there could be a Japanese Atlantis, perhaps a city around 5,000 years old that was sunk by an earthquake around 2 millennia ago, or even more radically, one created during the last ice age when sea levels in the area were 40 meters lower than today. Indeed, the Joe Rogan podcast in 24 recently hosted a lively debate about the claim that it might represent an ancient undiscovered civilization. While conventional narrative of history would find that possibility unlikely, discoveries like Göbekli Tepe are perhaps now making people reconsider. Easter Island has likewise become a focus of speculation about lost civilizations. However, such a speculative thesis about a lost global empire goes far beyond what the CTH requires, vis-a-vis the possibility of a lost human civilization being responsible for some UAP, which only needs A, a civilization of whatever size to have existed at some point, and B, its members retreating and surviving underground. To that point, there are many rumored examples of lost civilizations. Similarly, if not civilizations per se, then areas of land that supported human population. With those noted above, just a handful among many. Besides apparently strange examples like Easter Island, in which scholars struggle to account for the level of societal complexity and technological sophistication in such a remote place, there are other potential sources of evidence for such civilizations. One intriguing line of inquiry concerns out-of-place artifacts, objects that seem to be incompatible with our knowledge of the era with which they are linked, especially if they evince technological mastery that exceeds assumptions of what people in that era were capable of, which thus challenge conventional historical chronology. Heard a lot about this in the pyramids, for example. That said, caution is warranted in interpreting artifacts that seem too advanced for the time, considering these claims largely stem from a lack of understanding about the capacities of earlier groups. With the Colombo Falls in Zambia, for example, researchers in 2019 discovered an example of wood craftsmanship and technology, involving two pieces of wood fashioned to interlock together, that is dated to around 500,000 years ago, well before the emergence of Homo sapiens. Wow. Going even further back, workers at a coal mine in Ukraine found what appeared to be a fossilized imprint of a wheel in the sandstone roof of a tunnel they had excavated 900 meters below the surface, which is potentially dated as being 300 million years old. 300 million years old. Similarly, a Russian team found what appeared to be a 2-centimeter screw embedded within a rock that was estimated to be 300 million years old, though skeptics have argued it could be a fossilized imprint of an ancient sea creature called a crinoid. Or consider a photo shared by Rommel 2023 of what appears to be a petrified book encased in rock in Western Australia, which some interpret as possibly being 350 million years old. Such findings are evidently relevant to a CTH. Indeed, Coulthart 2023 suggests the intelligence community has taken a great interest in such objects, such as Egyptian relics dated to 5,500 years ago that display mastery of technology involving the shaping of stone that is far beyond the known technology of that era, as indicated in EndNote 23. More generally, he said the CIA has spent a lot of time investigating ancient civilizations, seeking answers to who were the people who crafted these buildings. As he noted, we still don't know. There are fundamental mysteries in human civilization that we haven't answered. In that respect, the possibility discussed here of advanced prehistoric civilizations lends some support to a CTH. However, this would not merely require such a civilization to have existed in the past, but to have continued to do so. In that respect, there are also many such myths, and even potential evidence as we explore next. Just as recent centuries have seen a proliferation of legends about lost civilizations, so have flourished myths about their people retreating underground and continuing to prosper. Before considering this, it is worth noting that the idea of subterranean living is not outlandish. Indeed, many historical underground cities have been found, most famously Derinkuyu in Turkey. I was just in Derinkuyu last September. I went on a trip through Turkey and went into Derinkuyu. Not quite as large as I expected, but it was a deep cave. Relatedly, recent decades have seen the construction of numerous underground complexes, most notably military bases, with an estimated 10,000 worldwide. For example, the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, a Space Force installation in Colorado, which used to host the North American Aerospace Defense Command. Yeah, I've been in this place. It's amazing. It has the buildings on giant springs. It was built under 2,000 feet of granite on 5 acres as a protective underground city to shield occupants from threats, including an electromagnetic pulse and even a 30-megaton nuclear explosion as close as 1.2 miles away. But not hit directly, right? So I guess can't stop a direct bunker buster, so they don't use it for that anymore. Moreover, while places like the Cheyenne Mountain Complex are remarkably deep, they are also still relatively close to the surface. And it's possible to go much further down, with the deepest point humans have so far been underground being 4,000 meters, Ashanti's Moponeng gold mine in South Africa, while the furthest humans have dug is the Kola super deep borehole in Russia, 7.6 miles deep, that we know about. A paper in the Proceedings of the National Academy of the Sciences, for instance, estimated roughly 20% of living mammal species remain undescribed, with the bulk of that predicted hidden diversity likely found among rodents and bats, two families with strong preferences for subterranean dens and nesting sites. And look at this. Among the most notorious candidates for hidden mammalian diversity is the Sasquatch, or Bigfoot, a large hairy primate purported to inhabit forests in North America, with similar legends of comparable creatures also found in other countries. And it's amazing, right? A paper, hopefully peer-reviewed, a scientific paper that talks about Sasquatch. Indeed, this was mentioned in relation to the Alaska Triangle above, in which cryptozoologist Cliff Barackman is reported as saying anything of any size could be hiding in the wilderness. With so much fantastic habitat and so few people to compete with, Sasquatches basically have the run of Alaska. While disregarded by skeptics as mythical, the likelihood of its existence has been attested to by no less a figure as Jane Goodall, the world's foremost primatologist. Indeed, Binder Nagel and Meldrum argue that the dismissals of its possibility has more to do with unawareness of evidence for its existence as a North American mammal than the absence of such evidence, with such evidence actually being quite solid and genuine, and that reasons for resistance is the topic challenges prevailing knowledge. Could easily be the stigma. I mean, as a UAP researcher, I'm hesitant to look into Sasquatch just because of the huge stigma associated with it. Even more relevantly here, some UAP cases involve apparent NHIs that resemble such creatures. In Brazil, a farmer reported encountering a craft that had crashed on his property, out of which 2 animals appeared, one of which was a stereotypical gray alien humanoid, but the other was hairy, like a sloth. But the reason to be skeptical, one often overlooked counterargument regarding the existence of a self-sustaining population of Sasquatch is that nearly all primate species are intelligent, social, and curious animals. Because this mythical creature is classified as a member of the primate order of mammals and considered its bipedal form of locomotion, would be a member of the hominid clade specifically. One would expect to see Sasquatches frequently appearing in the villages and rummaging through trash cans. However, such instances are rarely, if ever, reported. On the other hand, though, it is also possible that Sasquatches could be an anomalously solitary form of primate, hence their general elusiveness. Interesting. Okay, they mentioned the Chilean Atacama skeleton, which no one in Butte concluded in 2018 was merely a human girl with many DNA mutations, not anything more exotic. But another prominent example emerged as this article is being written, which is still being studied and debated, centering on 2 tiny mummified bodies with elongated heads and 3 fingers on each hand and foot, allegedly found in Peru in 2017. These were dramatically and controversially presented for the Mexican Congress in a UAP hearing in September 2023 by self-proclaimed ufologist Jaime Maussan, who claimed they were extraterrestrial in origin. However, while tests on these specimens are still underway, on balance, most observers seem skeptical that they are genuine, according to Norton 2023. Including us for reasons we elucidate in an endnote. There's a long history of tales and potentially even suggestive evidence of the skeletal remains and other traces of species of humanoid giants, Here again, there are probably good reasons for skepticism, though as with other aspects of this topic, we would not simply want to dismiss such ideas out of hand. They also talk about intelligent cryptozoological species thriving underground. So across cultures are legends, for instance, of anthropomorphic reptilian races such as the Nagas, semi-divine species of half-human, half-serpent beings thought to reside in Patala, another world, venerated in Hinduism and Buddhism. Moreover, paleontologists have even speculated whether such creatures could possibly have evolved from known zoological origins. Russell and Segu in 1982 analyzed the morphological trends among dinosaurs towards larger brains and upright posture in relation to a species called a troodon, and suggested that it had survived the mass extinction event 65 million years ago, who would likely have evolved into an upright reptilian-like figure they dubbed a dinosauroid. So I guess this is where the media reports get intelligent dinosaurs. Crucially, some people argue it could actually have survived the extinction and continued to develop by retreating below ground, though it is unclear how viable this theory is. Even so, it's intriguing that reptilians have long been associated with the UAP topic, with speculation that some such species does indeed represent an NHI that may be responsible for some UAP. Interesting. As mentioned in EndNote 13, for example, John Ramirez, I've interviewed him on his channel, has claimed that such entities are walking among us, disguised convincingly as regular humans. So this is the media report gets our aliens walking among us with the reptilian picture. Indeed, he speculates authorities are aware of these NHIs, pointing, for example, to the National Reconnaissance Office, which he calls the actual secret space program of the U.S. intelligence community, using lizards on their logos, and suggests such entities are crawling all over the Earth. Wow. Another possibility, overlapping with the extraterrestrial hypothesis, is that an NHI could have arrived on Earth from elsewhere at some point and subsequently taken up residence underground or underwater, or otherwise concealed itself nearby, example, on the moon. Say while there's no direct or generally accepted evidence of Homo sapiens or other species going underground in the past, there are many such legends, and a surprisingly extensive body of reports exist alleging encounters with such beings. Many cultures have myths about realms under the earth, ranging from underworld places associated with death in the afterlife, such as Sheol and Hebrew teachings, to fabled kingdoms inhabited by godlike figures, such as Shambhala in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. However, such efforts to locate these realms have seemingly proved fruitless and their supposed inhabitants elusive. That said, certain locales have attracted considerable interest. Among the most well-known is Mount Shasta, a currently dormant volcano in the Cascade Range of California, long revered as sacred by indigenous tribes of the region. Mount Shasta continues to be notorious for unusual activity, which helps explain its growing appeal to spiritual pilgrims. Relatedly, the mountain is also infamous for numerous mysterious disappearances, which people have gone missing without a trace. Then to return to our central UAP theme, Wallenstein notes the mountain is one of the most prominent UAP hotspots in the U.S. Records 25 officially reported sightings from 1995 to 2020, and there even seems to be recent photographic evidence of UAP emerging out of its peak, including one described as a large light, the cigar-shaped object directly below it, which suddenly took off and disappeared from sight. To that point, in our final section below, we return to our main theme and the reason people are contemplating a CTH, namely UAP activity suggestive of NHI actually having some durable concealed presence on Earth. Okay, final section here on magical crypto terrestrials. So the ideas canvassed thus far were not generally accepted by contemporary natural science paradigms, nevertheless still fit somewhat within their rough boundaries. Aliens on the ocean floor, subterranean hominid, would be highly surprising, but not genuinely metaphysically revisionary in any strong sense, and essentially just involve extrapolating from activities in which humans already undeniably engage, from flying spacecraft to living in caves. However, as noted above, a striking feature of the UAP topic has been the extent to which its phenomena seem to resist explanation in conventional terms, craft without visible means of propulsion or sources of exhaust. Such observations have prompted some observers, including in the U.S. federal government and defense establishment, to speculate that unconventional, ultra-terrestrial explanations are precisely what is called for from interdimensional beings, to future human travelers, to the panoply of ethereal NHIs recognized in most cultures, such as the class of beings known in the contemporary West as angel. Wow, so it could be angels, which Case and Lomas forthcoming label sacra-terrestrials or aterrestrials. Oh, look at those words, man. Are these new? They must be new. Gonna have to put in the dictionary. These are new words. Sacra-terrestrials or aterrestrials. Aterrestrials. Are they terrestrial ethers? Or they're from the ether? Aetherestrials. Wow, interesting. Another dimension of the dimension of the ether? Most relevantly here, among these varied unconventional hypotheses is a fascinating class of proposed ultra-terrestrial beings that overlap with notions like angels, but which can still be considered part of the crypto terrestrial paradigm. Specifically, this is the crowd of concealed or fully integrated terrestrial NHIs, or perhaps non-conventional human intelligences. Non-conventional human intelligences. They go by many names the world over, but which have traditionally been grouped in European cultures under the broad heading of fairy or longevi, long livers, fairies, elves, gnomes, brownies, trolls, and the like. As Lewis noted in his study of the medieval worldview, the longevi place of residence is ambiguous between air and earth, with their nature conceived as a third rational species distinct from angels and men. It must be like the jinn. After all, according to Arthur C. Clarke's third law, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, from Arthur C. Clarke. However, we ought not rule out the magical framing potentially being at least as close to the truth as the technological one, which could itself be an imposition by observers anchored on the tropes and techniques of the space age. As philosopher and theologian David Bentley Hart observed in 2009 in an essay on Kirk's Secret Commonwealth, one need not believe in fairies to grasp that there is no good reason why one ought not to do so. To see the world as inhabited by these vital intelligences, or to believe that behind the outward forms of nature there might be an unperceived realm of intelligent order, is simply to respond rationally to one of the ways in which the world seems to address us, when we intuit simultaneously its rational frame and the depth of mystery it seems to hide from us. So he's arguing there is a unperceived realm of intelligent order. Of course, one might concede the possibility of belief in the longevi, or reject their actuality on the empirical grounds that we simply can't find them, any more than we can find unicorns or the Loch Ness Monster. This is a more reasonable position, one even shared at least in part by Kirk and Hart themselves, but it too ought to be held lightly. After all, direct acquaintance with these phenomena has always been believed to be rare, and even today people continue to report a variety of broadly supernatural encounters. Most Icelanders, for example, are at least unwilling to deny the existence of the elves and trolls who figure so prominently in their folklore, while many Irish remain open to, or perhaps fearful of, the existence of fairies. Moreover, some UAP reports, while not explicitly connected to traditions concerning fairies, bear striking resemblance to aspects of those traditions. Indeed, this is the central theme of Vallee's classic Passport to Magonia on UFOs, folklore, and parallel world. Some of the encounters described above, for instance, abductions near Mount Shasta, already rhyme in significant ways with the fairy lore. Still, such is the sheer high strangeness of the UAP topic, potentially also of Antarctica itself, about which there are numerous UAP-related narratives besides that associated with Bird, including of NHI bases, as well as unusual photographic data that seems to suggest anomalous structures that we should not completely rule it out. That's one prominent rumor centers on a military mission from 46 to 47 known as Operation High Jump, led by Rear Admiral Richard Byrd, ostensibly to establish an Antarctic research base. The trip itself is well documented, however there have been long, strange rumors regarding this mission, both in terms of its real purpose and actual outcome, including the claim that Byrd himself was pulled through some kind of vortex while flying and encountered a fantastical city inside the Earth inhabited by an advanced race of beings. And they mention here, look, the Y-Files. Significantly, although certain aspects of these rumors have been debunked, as for example explained on an episode of the Y-Files, other parts are nevertheless potentially credible, including Byrd appearing to have a period of missing time on one of his flights and intensive UAP activity that can be interpreted as being in the service of protecting a secret base. Okay, so the reason the CTH is being invoked is because of the two empirical mysteries noted above around UAP activity being underwater and in relation to underground or underwater entry points. We don't mean they've merely been observed in these locations. After all, an underwater UAP could still be extraterrestrial, interdimensional, extratempestrial, etc. in origin. Rather, what might tip the balance of probability towards a CTH-specific interpretation would be indications of a relatively permanent NHI presence on or around Earth, possibly involving some kind of a base. In that respect, some argue there is such evidence, albeit contentious and contested. Here we briefly note a few examples, though it is beyond our scope to be exhaustive, including suggestions of bases underground, underwater, and on the moon. So, underground NHI bases or enclaves, numerous locations have been alleged. One is Antarctica, as noted in the previous subsection. Another is the so-called Dulce base, that some people exist under Arculeta Mesa near Dulce, New Mexico. Those claims first arose from Albuquerque businessman Paul Benowitz, his run-in with Richard Doty, though it transpires he had been fed misinformation by ufologist Bill Moore and an Air Force intelligence operative, Richard Doty, who has corroborated this claim. However, the rumors persisted, particularly because of Phil Schneider, who came publicly before his untimely death in '96, ostensibly by suicide, that he had been employed there as an engineer, and that it was in fact jointly operated by the U.S. military and an NHI species. This is interesting, with the latter having long been the original occupants of the Mesa, and who were more recently encountered when the military were constructing their base, so they were already there. It goes without saying that these claims have not been substantiated. Nevertheless, some people close to the UAP topic think they should be considered. There's also allegations of NHI bases underwater. More than 80% of Earth's oceans remain unexplored and uncharted. An exploration in the Gulf of Alaska recently retrieved a mysterious golden ore from 3,300 meters underwater, and although believed to be biological in origin, researchers have no idea what it is. The expedition coordinator said, while somewhat humbling to be stumped by this finding, it serves as a reminder of how little we know about our own planet and how much is left to learn and appreciate about our ocean. A third side of intrigue is the moon, and particularly its far side, which remains perennially hidden from view. Indeed, of all possible crypto-terrestrial locations, it has attracted the most speculation, with many strands of intriguing evidence accumulating over the years, differing levels in ambiguity and quality. Some observers suggest the moon itself is very strange, characterized, as recently noted by Avi Loeb in 24, by numerous extraordinary coincidences regarding its size, behavior, and composition. As a result, some have speculated that the entire object may be an artificial NHI construction. It's amazing. I can't believe this is in a paper. So cool. Perhaps the most keenly studied stories are those associated with NASA missions and observations. Most directly, there is apparent photographic evidence in the public domain, which, while not confirmatory of NHI, does at least seem anomalous and hard to explain, and which some have interpreted as lunar bases. Relatedly, some NASA whistleblowers such as Carl Wolf, Ken Johnston claim that even more conclusive photographic evidence of potential bases exist, but that NASA has actively sought to deny, suppress, and conceal such information. I made a recent video on Gary McKinnon, who in 2001-2002 hacked into NASA databases and found that they were actually scrubbing. There was a program to actually scrub photographs of any UAP information. Finally, there are the views of the actual Apollo astronauts, and although none have said, in public at least, that they encountered such bases, many have been vocal about their beliefs in NHI, most famously Edgar Mitchell, who is on record in 2008 as saying, yes, there have been ET visitations, there have been crashed craft, and bodies recovered. We are not alone in the universe. They have been coming here for a long time. In any case, whatever the validity of these claims, scientists like Davies and Wagner have proposed specifically searching for alien artifacts on the moon, giving that, A, extraterrestrial NHIs may well have engaged with it at some point in the history of the solar system, and moreover, B, unlike Earth, the lunar environment could preserve artifacts for millions of years. This is an amazing point. There's no plate tectonics on the moon, so mining on the moon would be just an amazing archaeological exercise that we should definitely do. Okay, made it to the conclusion. This paper has made the case for taking seriously the CTH as a potential explanation for UAP, while noting that it probably ranks lower than other hypotheses, such as the extraterrestrial explanation, although such calculations are hard to quantify. To be precise, the material above actually contains 4 different CTHs. All would involve entities existing in stealth during recent human history, and possibly even before the emergence of Homo sapiens, in some cases such as CTH2, but differ in the nature of the beings in question. So these are the 4 we covered. CTH1, human crypto terrestrial, a technologically advanced ancient human civilization that was largely destroyed long ago, e.g. by flood, but continued to exist in remnant form. CTH2, hominid or theropod crypto terrestrials. This is the reptilians, a technologically advanced non-human civilization consisting of some terrestrial animal which evolved to live in stealth, e.g. underground, perhaps a hominid, or alternatively a species much more distantly related to us, e.g. descendants of unknown intelligent dinosaurs. That's amazing. So like Sasquatch or dinosaur. CTH3, former extraterrestrial or extratempestrial cryptoterrestrials. Extraterrestrial aliens or our intertemporal descendants who arrived on Earth from elsewhere in the cosmos or from the human future, respectively, and concealed themselves in stealth. So I guess just former ETs or time travelers, but they've been here for a long time. That's what I understand. And they live here permanently and conceal themselves in stealth. And CTH4, magical cryptoterrestrials, so entities which are less like homegrown alien and more like earthbound angels relating to the world inhabited by humans in ways that, at least from our present perspective, are less technological than magical, or are known in European languages by names like fairies, elves, nymphs, etc. Oh, amazing stuff. Indeed, as a fitting summary of the CTH, it may be exceedingly improbable, but hopefully this paper has shown it should nevertheless be kept on the table as we seek to understand the ongoing empirical mystery of UAP. I totally agree. Amazing paper. So glad it made headlines. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of skeptics making claims against this paper, but it has everything in it. I mean, it really includes a lot of things, right? Sasquatch, other consciousnesses, fairies, elves, time travelers, interdimensions, sacroterrestrials, etherrestrials, but so glad it's out there. Thank you for watching. Please hit the like button. It really helps and it's free. Consider subscribing to get future notifications of when I release videos. And you might like this video recommended by YouTube just for you. If you want to support the channel, join these great people over here, get exclusive bonus content, then click this button here, patreon.com/Chris Lehto, or become a YouTube member. If you want to continue the discussion, go to UAPSociety Discord. Links are all in the description. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.